YouTube, welcome back, man. Today I'm gonna be showing y'all how to take y'all mixes from sounding like this to this. So of course I heard the difference, man, and before we get into the video, I really want to thank y'all for 10,000 subscribers, man. Who would have thought, man? Come on, bro. 5 digits, like 5 digits is crazy. Like we hit 6K, 7K, 8K. I was like, alright, cool. Like it's starting to look like something, right? But man, 5 digits, bro. Man, thank y'all, man. So y'all seen the title, man. Brand new series, brand new everything. You know, 10,000, bro. We gotta step it up a little bit, right? So yeah, that's why for 10,000, I started a brand new mixing series. Since I believe I got 1,000 comments, bro. Like on all of my tutorials, like 90% of the comments is always like, how do you mix your beats? How do you mix this? How do you mix that? So brand new series for 10,000, man. And the reason why it's a series and not just one video is because I can't cover all my knowledge in just one video, bro. Like I need a whole series for this shit, right? But yeah, the series is gonna be called Mixing Class. It's not gonna be a boring class, bro. So make sure to show up every time, on time too, bro. So make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, things like that. So for the first episode today, I thought it would be a good idea to cover the basics of mixing and leveling, stuff like that. So I got a loop right in front of me, since I ain't gonna be bothered to make a melody and all that stuff today. So yeah, I'm gonna be arranging this loop first. Loop is from 808 Leak, man. Shout out 808 Leak, man. What I'm gonna do is send these all to a mixer track and kind of mix the melody first, because I see a lot of people sleeping on the melody mix, bro. Like if your melody sounds trash, your drum's gonna sound trash. So make sure to spend time on the melody as well. So a thing I like to do is not just cut out the low frequencies out of every melody. Like you could get a high pass, just cut everything out, make room for the 808, because of course it's a very important part in mixing your melody, is to actually make room for the 808. But what I advise y'all to do is to not cut all the low frequencies out of the melody, but link it to a bus. Do that by selecting all the melody mixer tracks, right clicking on an empty track right here, go to route to this track only, and put an EQ on this. So then you can automate this EQ to actually have low end in the melody or not. That's what the melody sounded like without any effects on it. And now that I mixed everything, put some effects on it, it sounds like this. You can sit here and say that basically all I did was put some EQs and some reverb on it. But yeah, that's basically what I did. On every melody, I always start out with an EQ, just cleaning it up a little bit before I put some effects on it. Because if you would clean it up after the effects, you're basically doing it wrong, bro. Like think about it. Like you want your signal to be as clean as possible before going into effects like reverb and delay and stuff like that. So yeah, on every instrument, that's why I start out with the EQ. Just kind of some of the harsh frequencies out, boosting some of the frequencies. As you can see right here, I cut the sub lows out because you don't really want those anyway, right? Like just make sure to not cut everything out, but just cut the really like the sub lows out. So on the choir, the piano, the brass, everything start out with the EQ. And next I got this preset, the Valhalla Vintage Verb. And the reason why I like to put another reverb on my melodies is so I can use the same reverb preset on my drums. And what that's gonna do essentially is your drums and your melodies are gonna sound like they're gonna glue together way better instead of using 1,000 different like reverb presets and stuff like that. So yeah, I got this preset and I put it on, I think, every melody. But I play with the mix a little bit because you don't want all your melodies to have the same reverb, right? Like you want some melodies to have like a subtle reverb and others you want to have more reverb, of course. So yeah, every melody got an EQ and a reverb. And now some melodies I played around with the delay a little bit. For example, on this piano. So without the delay, it would sound like this. With the delay. Fans it out a little bit. Use the ping pong preset. Sounds way better. You put a delay on that. Nothing on the brass. Put a chorus on the pluck. Vintage Verb shaper box to pan it out from left to right. Some very slight effects, nothing crazy. And also pan some things out from left to right, since the drums are usually very mono, like in the middle. So I like to pan out my melodies, have the melodies be all over the place inside your headphones or speakers. So that's basically it for the melody. What I'm gonna do next is structure it, arrange it real quick. I got a video on that, so make sure to watch that if you have trouble arranging your beats. Should pop up right here or here if I don't forget to put it in the video. All right, so I arranged it real quick. And what I'm gonna do next, like I said before, instead of cutting out all the low end out of your melody on every single individual instrument, what I'm gonna do is move this down, select them all. I showed y'all before, route to this track only, open up an EQ, and cut out everything under like 200 hertz. Really depends on the melody, but I usually go like 150 to 200, and create automation clip right there. And I want my drums to come in right at the beginning, but at the hook right here. So there's low end in this part since there's no 808, if that makes sense. So there's actually still life in your melody. Like if you cut out all the low end at the beginning, like there's no emotion or like life in your melody, if that makes sense. So there is low end and like lower frequencies in this part, and then the drums come in right here. We got 16 bar hook, 16 bar verse, so there's an 808 in both of those. So we want the low end out of our melody to make room for the 808. So yeah, put a pattern right here, since there's gonna be drums in this part, 16 bar hook, 16 bar verse. And then there's drums like that. And it's probably the most important, like the best tip I can give y'all. Make sure you have high quality drum sounds, bro. Like it wouldn't make sense to start out with bad samples, like bad drum sounds, and like clean them up later with EQs and all that bullshit. Like make sure you have good high quality sounds that are already mixed and stuff like that, so it's way easier to get a better mix. Yeah, for the people in the back of the class asking like, yo, where can I find those high quality sounds? Y'all know I got you, bro. Like my rookie season drum kit, for the people that haven't got it so far, yeah, I got 808s, bonus loops, claps, effects, hi-hats, kicks, open hats, perks, and some snares. I already mixed everything, like high quality sounds. And I'm also gonna be using my new Heaven Sent drum kit, still working on it. I wanted to like use it in this video just to like showcase y'all what's inside of the kit before it actually drops. So make sure to subscribe to the channel to stay notified when I drop the kit. All right, so let's let some drums sound real quick. So for me, the mixing has already started, if that makes sense. Like, as y'all can see, I turned my snare up all the way since I want my snare to be punchy and loud. So that's why instead of it sounding like this, like, where's the snare at, bro? Like, I don't hear it. Turn it up all the way, make it sound like punchy, stuff like that. Instead of this. Like, where is it? So I got this 808 from my new drum kit. Gonna be using it in this beat. It sounds like this. What I like to do is put the out knob up like 25% so it's not too long, so there's no 808 just playing like in your ear throughout the whole beat. And now, bro, for the first little sauce, man, for the people that didn't know already. And of course, you want your 808 to hit hard. So if you're using a kick, of course, lower the 808 a little bit and boost the kick to make it hit. But since we want to have the 808 serve the purpose of the kick, if that makes sense, I'm gonna boost it. So now it's like 10 times louder. Right to this. So yeah, like I said, for the 808 to serve the same purpose as the kick, you want it to be as loud as the kick. If that makes sense. So I'm gonna boost it. And while we're on that subject, bro, like for the people asking what's on my master, a soft clipper. Stock settings, y'all can copy it, take a screenshot, send it to your friends, post it on Instagram. I don't care, bro, like a soft clipper. For the people that don't know what a soft clipper does, it basically keeps everything under 1 decibel. So it basically clips everything down. So if this is the 0 decibel meter, if anything comes above it, it basically pushes it down so it stays at 0, right? So it doesn't distort. Because if I played a boosted 808 on a master without the soft clipper, it would sound like this. With the soft clipper. Feel me? So yeah, that's what a lot of y'all been waiting for, apparently. So yeah, I'm gonna lay 808 pattern down. Alright, so I laid pattern down. Next, what I like to do is make this box shape with the envelope so that the 808 does not like continue all the way after the pattern. That makes sense. So when the note stops, the 808 sample stops playing. Yeah, by the way, do not copy everything I'm doing. Take tips and practice on your own, because the only way your mix is actually gonna sound good is if you know what you're doing and not just copy what I'm doing, if that makes sense. So I can give you all the knowledge, all the tips in the world, but if you're not gonna go out there and practice and develop your own ears and like train your ears to mix better, you're not gonna get anywhere. So make sure to take my tips and advice and apply it to your own workflow and your own beats instead of just copy what I'm doing. So yeah, let's go back to it. So I finished the drum pattern right here. And as y'all saw, I already mixed some of it. As you can see, I already played around with these parameters a little bit. So yeah, what I'm gonna do is reset all of those. So I basically do this to save time. Like, of course, I know how something like I want it to sound later on in the beat, so I already play around with these while I'm making the beat to save time. What I'm gonna do next, select all of the drums, Control or Command L, go into mixer tracks right here. As you can see, all the faders right here completely flat, didn't touch them yet. Set these all to default, so without anything being leveled or mixed or anything, the drums sound like this. Yeah, so let's get into the mixing now. So step number 1 for me might be different from yours, so make sure to experiment with your own workflow and stuff like that. Like, everyone works differently, and I just work whatever I think works best for me. So yeah, I muted all of these tracks with the drums. And I always like to keep my melody playing, so you have a reference point, right? Like, make sure to keep your melodies playing while you're mixing your drums. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense to just mix your 808 solo by itself without the melody. Yeah, of course, I already mixed the melody and everything, so I'm gonna play it real quick. As you can see, it's not hitting above 12 dB. And I'm not saying your melodies should not be above or below 12 dB, but that's just my reference point. It's a reference point, like I said. Like, it's just to get started. Like, you might change it later on, boost everything, or like lower everything, but for me, I'm starting out on 12 dB, so that's my reference point, and I might change it later. So yeah, right here we got the crash. Way too loud. Want it to be subtle. Something like that. Next up, got the 808, man. So I always make sure to put my 808 in mono since it's a bass. You don't want it to pan out or anything like that, so make sure it's in mono. I put it in mono by using this fader right here. So this is stereo, and to the right is mono. And since we got a clipper on the master, we can basically get it as loud as we want, since it's gonna be clipped to 0 decibels. But if I boost it all the way up, it's not gonna sound good, trust me. Yeah, that's way too loud. So what I'm gonna do is lower this so it's hitting under 0. Like that, and while it's playing, I'm actually gonna like increase this slider in volume. So I don't want it to be this low, since I like the way how it sounds clipped, but I also don't want it to be this loud. So I'm gonna find the sweet spot in the middle where it clips, so like over 0 decibels, but it's not like extremely loud, if that makes sense. Sounds good. So yeah, right now it's hitting like a little over 0, around 2 decibels. Otherwise, I could just turn the soft clipper off, since there's nothing else in the beat that's hitting above 0 decibels. So yeah, you really want to find that sweet spot in the middle. And like I said, make sure to experiment and practice by yourself. So next, the hat and the snare. I like to mix these both together at the same time, since the 808, the hat, and the snare are probably the most fundamental, like the most important parts of the drums. So yeah, I'm gonna start out with the snare. Of course, I don't want this to clip. I don't want this to be over 0 decibels, because it's gonna sound horrible. I want it right under like 0, because I like to have a punchy snare, like a hard hitting snare. So yeah, I'm gonna keep it like under 0, but not around 12, if that makes sense. Sounds good. Next, the hi-hat. Sounds good. Yeah, the snare is hitting around 6 to 3, not too loud, because you don't want it to pierce your ears. Yeah, you also don't want it to be too quiet, because the snare really sets the tempo, because it's always gonna be there. So yeah, if I put it down all the way compared to this, it's way better. Next, for the hi-hat, I know some people like to have their hi-hats very loud. That's too loud for me. I always like to keep it under the snare, around the melody, you could say. Something like that. So yeah, I'd say as long as you keep your hi-hat like a little over, like a little louder than your melody, you're good to go. Next, for the open hat, of course, it's a hat as well. So I always like to keep these leveled pretty similar. So you don't want your open hat to be way louder than the hi-hat, of course. So I always like to keep it similar compared to the hi-hat. Something like that. So yeah, I always like to make sure that my open hat is not louder than the hi-hat, but you can also get away with your open hat being pretty quiet. Something like that. I think it sounds better, like a little bit louder. So I always do my percussion last with a counter snare that I have going on right here. It's a little bit too loud now. So of course you want your counter snare to be present, since it adds a lot of bounce to the drums, really like fills in some empty gaps. So you don't want it to be too quiet. So a sweet spot for me is to keep this right below the main snare, because otherwise, like, of course it's a main snare, it's gonna really like set the tempo like I said before. So you don't want your counter snare to be as loud, of course. So I always like to keep it a little bit under the main snare. Like let's say I would keep it at like 3 decibels where the main snare is hitting as well, would sound like this. Like it's a little bit too loud for me, like a little bit too present. So I always like to bring it down like 5 decibels. Just a little accent, bro. It sounds way better. So I always like to keep my main snare very present and have the counter snare kind of add on to the main snare, if that makes sense. So keep it down a little bit. Lastly, for the percussion, bro, like percussion could go anyway, like any direction, any level. Like there's no like guidelines for this. Of course, this perk right here sounds good when it's loud, but a shaker, you don't want it to like be too loud, if that makes sense. Of course, the shaker is gonna be lower in volume than this perk. So yeah, I'd say for percussion, really go by ear and just figure out what sounds best to you. Sounds good. So I got this first perk hitting around 6 decibels. So let's say I put this perk around 6 decibels. It's gonna be way too loud. It's way too loud. So yeah, I'm gonna lower this a bunch. Maybe pan it out to the right. See what I'm saying? That like it sounds way better. Like they're all different and unique in their own way. For the people who remember, beginning of the video, I added reverb to every single instrument. And what I said is I like to add the same reverb to my percussion or whatever drums you want to put reverb on. I like to keep it in the same preset, since it really like glues it together instead of using all different kind of rooms and all different kind of reverbs and stuff like that. So I'm gonna put some reverb on this and some delay as well. So yeah, it should sound 10 times better now. Actually some room to it. Maybe add some reverb to this perk as well. And I hope y'all get my point now. Like it really like glues it together, if that makes sense. To add some room to your drums as well, and also make sure to pan your drums out instead of being in the middle throughout the whole beat. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the basics. Pretty much think I covered everything that I wanted to cover in this video, because of course, since it's the first episode, I wanted to start out without using a lot of fancy plugins that I see a lot of people using, or a lot of fancy techniques and stuff like that. I wanted to keep things very simple for the first episode, because yeah, of course you could go in here and use all sorts of fancy plugins and make all these new buses for drums and put compression on it and stuff like that. So yeah, the last thing that I wanted to mention in this video, based on my experience, is I hear a lot of people like talk about the mix is not really important, since an engineer, if your song gets placed, an engineer is gonna make sure beat anyway. But based on my experience and a lot of producers around me, all the placements we got, like 90% of it was probably recorded on an MP3 file. So that's why I think it's important to know and like have an ear for mixing and actually like produce good quality like beats, if that makes sense, instead of relying on an engineer to mix your stuff afterwards. Because think about it, your beat's not gonna be mixed if you send it to an artist or put it on YouTube. Like an artist gonna find your beat either on their phone, in their mail inbox, or on YouTube, and the mix is gonna need to be there, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's probably the reason why you're in this class anyway. So yeah, all right, so that's pretty much it for today's video, man. We basically covered all the basics of mixing beats, and I hope y'all learned something from the video, like always, man. Yeah, like I said in the beginning of the video, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, because you're not trying to miss one of these classes, bro. Like, trust me. And I mean, who's out here giving free classes, bro? Like, did you go to school for free? I don't know, bro, but y'all get the point. Of course, don't forget to check out my drum kits, follow me on Instagram, stuff like that, man. I got a Discord server as well, so make sure to join that as well. Yeah, once again, thank y'all for 10K, bro. It's insane. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me today. Make sure to let me know in the comments what y'all trying to see next on the channel, or what kind of mixing class y'all want next. I'm gonna catch y'all in the next video, man. That's it.